Okay, so another salary question that I had gotten that I wanted to address was this discussion about money in general and the interview process. When is it appropriate to talk about what you want for pay? Is it something that you negotiate right from the start in that immediate phone interview? What other things do you have to keep in mind? Is it really true that you have to stick with one number the entire way through the interview process? Lots of good questions, right? So this video is going to just address a little bit more about salary. Specifically, I want to talk first about when should you be discussing your salary information. So I think in the other video I'd mentioned that in the United States, many states nationwide require salary transparency rules, meaning that employers have to pay a posted range, right, for a position. Lots of states these days too do require that employers are not asking about pay history. So you do not check your state. You may not necessarily need to volunteer this information. Okay, so this sets me up for the question, when should you talk about salary requirements? So a lot of times if you're interviewing, this is going to be in your first interview. I mean, of course, there are places where that's not the case, but commonly this is a standard question. Most places are asking it in the form of, what is your salary expectation? What are you hoping to have for this, your next role, whatever the case might be. So the idea here is that, yes, you can share, you probably should share some information about what your range is that you are hoping for. I always tell clients that I work with, don't pin yourself to a specific number, always give some sort of range. And, this is because, hello, people, you're in an early stage of the process. Quite frankly, you're probably talking to a recruiter, someone who is not a subject matter expert at this stage. So they are operating from a place of whether or not you meet or fall within the ranges that are acceptable should you be extended an offer for hire, right, at this early stage. So the name of the game in most cases at this first interview, early stages, is that you want to be pricing yourself expectation-wise within range of what this company possibly could be, looking for in the role, okay? So beyond that, there's a lot of legwork you have to do as a candidate. You have to do the research to figure out what is that preferred expectation range that you should be voicing. I think I had mentioned other resources. Certainly we can share a list of that in the comments section of where you can look for this kind of information so you can construct an educated point of view about what you should be asking for. But generally in the early stages, the name of the game is that they're wanting to make sure that you're in the ballpark of the range. I always tell people to consider volunteering a little bit of information at this first interview or early on, saying, hey, this is my range. I'd like to be somewhere close to, if not in this range, X to Y, but if this is the first stage of the interview process, I have yet to speak with the hiring manager or learn more about the role. I definitely would reserve the right to edit that if I learned that there's more requirements, but this is what I'm looking for. Just because you're setting a tone that you're not pinned to a specific number, that they can catch you in an aha moment, like, aha, we got you. Not that many places are like that, but there are some. But you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough room to move through the interview process and be considered. So that's why you're giving that range. Okay, so some other thoughts about this. When it comes to the salary conversation at later stages in the game, it's very possible you'll be asked to revisit what are you looking for in pay at other steps in the process before you actually get to the offer. This is especially true if you work with a third-party recruiter. So it's not the principal organization, not the hiring company, but someone who's an intermediary. They're wanting to make sure that your expectations, like doing a temperature check, have they changed a bit from what you're learning in every step of the interview process from the people that you're talking to. They want to make sure that they understand where you're sitting, right, as best they can. But also the same logic applies to those who are hiring. If they're recruiters for the company and they might bring it up again, they could sense earlier on that pay was probably going to be a sticking point. They want to keep checking in with you to understand, with all of the pieces that are important to a role, pay being one of them, because you're learning more information about positions and things out there. How is your viewpoint now about pay? Have things changed? Have you, soured on this opportunity a bit? So just keep these things in mind as you're progressing through the process. Eventually, you will get down the line, hopefully, to receiving an offer. And, this in itself is a separate video about pay and just how to handle these conversations when it's a later stage kind of interview, or they've announced to you that you are going into an offer. So, just be aware that a lot of companies and a lot of people who are involved in the hiring and selection process, they're wanting to make sure with candidates that they really find viable and potentially someone that they'd hire, they want to make sure that you're still high on the position, you're interested, and those other pieces like pay are still in alignment for discussion. Okay, so keep that in mind. You don't have to give your number. I would like early on and think that that's your end all be all number. Certainly don't approach it like that. Certainly do your research on ranges. I think, if you'd like, check back with the other video on how you can, come up with an educated point of view about arriving at your number. But I would love to hear what you guys think. Feel free to message me. Feel free to let me know what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. But yeah, that's my little bit for now. We'll probably talk more about pay later on. Like I said, it's such a popular topic. And certainly when you enter that negotiation stage, that's a big critical point, in the process, and you want to be ready for that. All right, thanks everybody.